You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at marcguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. The Bay Area, like any other metro area in America, is changing. Some of these changes impact who lives here or how people go about their lives while they live here. Today's episode of Highest and Best focuses on some of these changes. Today we talk with Keith Robinson of NextHome Real Estate, which is utilizing new technologies and methods to help clients find their dream home. We also dig into changing demographics in the Bay Area, as well as how an expanded BART service could impact the Bay Area. Okay. So Keith, thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So you recently moderated a panel for us for the Young Professionals Network for the Contra Costa Association of Realtors.
Yep.
And I think you did a phenomenal job there. And it was a really good panel. And what was probably your biggest takeaway from that?
Man, I think the thing that really carried through, the panel was amazing. And thank you for the compliment, but they really made my job incredibly easy because the quality of the presenters, the quality of the panel was amazing. And the thing that kept ringing through with that specific one, because we were really talking about involvement and commitment and, creating a change for the industry or for an individual. And the key that I saw that was true throughout all of them was really this sort of wanting to give as opposed to give to get. And then the getting, they all received something from it, but they all received different things. But that commitment and the consistency and the giving is what really drove it for them.
Yeah. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that he says all the time. You have to give more.
Well, that and a lot of F-bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we allowed to do that on this?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do whatever
we're
the
about
fuck
to
you
get
want.
Weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, right. You got to give. And I think if you think about giving in the form of, like, if you're giving to get, it can feel pretty disingenuous, right?
Yeah.
It feels pretty fake. But if you can find something that you really just want to give to anyway, then you will receive a lot from the humans that you're investing in. So that for me was the big reminder. I mean, I'd heard it before. None of that was like earth shattering.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we discovered some secret particle or anything. But
it's something that's very easy to forget when you're in business.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of people really don't practice.
Well, you just get more. Well, it's just hard, right? Like life, like you just get, you got to pick kids up and got to try to sell a house or do a mortgage and, or whatever. And like, right. Just giving. And if I can just do that, I can get stuff back. Right. But it's one of those things that can be easy to cut out of the schedule because we're so quote unquote busy. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a crisis of busy right now, especially in our industry, where people want to appear so busy all the time that
they want to appear busy.
Yeah. Right. Anytime you see someone in the industry, right, the first thing you hear is, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm so busy." But are you though? Right.
Yeah.
Like, are busy with what? Like, is what you're focusing on really the thing that is driving your personal life or your professional life where you want it to be? Right. Gary Vaynerchuk, not that that's the topic that we're here to talk about, but he talks about it a lot, right? You don't have time for your hustle, but you're great on Fortnite,
Netflix.
Right? Or you've seen every Game of Thrones episode 6 times, right?
Yeah.
Like you have the time. It's just where are you investing it, right?
Yeah.
So it was a great reminder from them on taking the time to make what's important.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, I'm so busy," and they might have 1 or 2 transactions going on. Yeah. And then you have someone that's got 15 to 20 transactions going on, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a great day."
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just that positivity and completely different mindset.
Well, and we do have a culture, this industry, this country, I think, we have a culture of sort of an addiction to busy, right? Like we really, really want to talk about how busy we are all the time. And not necessarily productive we are, right? Or how what I'm busy doing creates value for me, right? Like no, I don't know. Balance, I think, is a total myth, right? I think it's a lie that sells books and tapes. There's going to be times where you work way too hard. Look, if you go take 5 listings today, you're going to be busy as hell, and there's no solution for that. You get to just work way harder than you should, and that's how life goes. And you might even miss a soccer game, and I get it. I've got a 6-year-old little girl. I don't ever want to miss a dance performance, but there are times where I have to work harder than I should. Then there are going to be other times where you should play harder than you should. And, if you're in Hawaii, go ahead and have a rum drink at noon and turn your phone off and set the autoresponder and check out. That's okay too. But choose it. Don't just work till you burn out, then disappear. Work till you burn out, then disappear, right?
Well, you see that even in agent marketing, right?
Yeah.
Where agents will market, do really well, get a lot of leads, a lot of business. They stop marketing.
Yep.
And then they close the deals. They're back to square one.
Yeah.
And they're back to it.
They have to reinvent their business every 6 months.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
They sell a bunch of houses. They get them in escrow, and then they manage I like that we get to use dirty words. And then they manage the shit out of those escrows, right?
Yeah.
And petting its little head and making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And those things are really important. They truly are. But you can't lose sight of what it takes, what got you that, right? If you can consistently do the things to build your business, then it's easier to hire staff or a transaction coordinator or someone else to take off some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it really comes down to making sure you're working on productive tasks as opposed to things that are just taking up your time.
Yeah.
Things that are not important, right? Because at the end of the day, it's productivity. Like, what do you produce at the end of the day that you can really judge on, not how busy and how time-consuming things are, right?
It's just tough in this industry, though. I agree with everything you said, right? But it's tough because, first of all, we can easily trick ourselves into saying we're doing something productive, but like what really is productive, right? Yep. And what, if you really are honest, there's only a handful of things that are super highly correlative to productivity, right?
Correct.
And then the other piece is we get acknowledgement of productive so infrequently, right? Mm-hmm. Like we don't sell a house a day. I mean, some people might, and if they do, they're probably not listening to this podcast because they got thousands and thousands of dollars stuffed in their ears, right? Because they got plenty of loot. But for us mortals, right, who aren't selling, like, how do we get rewarded? How do we get our productivity acknowledged, right? If the only time it is when we close escrow, that may not be frequent enough for understanding and acknowledging what's important. Right. Yeah. And what's truly quote unquote productive. Right. For me, when I was selling, for me, because this is beautiful, right? I was like, man, I love this career choice. I became the guy, anybody who had day game A's tickets would call me. Right. Because they knew that, hey, I could be a 105 first pitch. Right. I didn't have a boss. I was just doing my thing. So I had to come up with a structure where it was okay for me to get to do that. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I wanted to go to all of them. Right? Like the greatest blessing of this career path is the freedom. And then the hardest part about this career path is the freedom. And so for me, I managed what was productive, quote unquote. I just did air quotes for podcast listeners, so that doesn't really work, but it does if I tell you, I guess.
We're on Facebook Live.
Oh, cool. And we're on Facebook Live. So productive for me meant if I had a buyer or seller appointment that day, or I booked one, then I was free to get weird if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if I booked one appointment every day with either a buyer or a seller, then I advanced my business that day, right? Yeah. And if I didn't, then I didn't, and there were lots of days that I didn't. But I knew that, okay, I got the call at 9, A's first pitch, 105, beautiful day out. I really would like to go. I better bang the phones hard. Let me schedule an appointment. Let me follow up with these dead leads, these leads that I should have gotten back to, but I didn't. And then once I had that appointment booked, I was free to go. Yeah. Right. But if I didn't book an appointment, then I would say, well, all right, I guess I got to sacrifice a little bit to the real estate gods, a little bit of my calendar, the real estate gods, and I don't get to go take advantage of that opportunity. So I guess that's a long way of saying productivity is kind of tricky, right? And there's a lot of ways to measure it. And so defining for yourself what it is and being really honest about, is this activity truly productive? Right? Because there's so many time traps that you can step in where it's in the guise of productivity. Designing your open house flyer is not productivity. Actually doing the open house, sure, that's lead generation activity that could be deemed productive. But everything prior to starting the open house and everything post closing the door to the open house is not productive.
You know, I read the book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Workweek.
Great book.
Yeah. And now that book's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But I literally just finished reading it
Yeah.
a few months ago. And so now I'm addicted to, like, I've got a sheet where I list every single task I'm doing, along with, can this be automated, and does it require my skill?
Yes.
And I'm going through that, and I'm realizing 80% of the stuff does not require me to actually do it.
Yes.
And now I'm just addicted to automating everything. So I do property management, so now I'm just automating so many aspects of property management, and we're able to scale a lot bigger and faster.
Yeah. No, it's I read that book as well. It's funny, I resisted it for a long time because I thought the title was so stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Like 4-Hour Workweek is like, anyway, Tim Ferriss does not give any kind of care about what my opinion of it is, but like that's just it's a lie, right? Like, you don't have a 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't.
He does explain that in the book.
No, right. But the title doesn't, right?
Yeah,
so I, like, oh, great. This guy's trying to trick me into buying his book. So I resisted it. And then I bought it and I read it and I loved it for all the same reasons that you're talking about. I think, I have a virtual assistant now that I've had for, probably 3 years. And straight from reading that book, I was like, man, that's great. There were so many great insights that I got. And it still feels weird sometimes. Like, I don't feel like I'm the kind of guy who, like, let me have my assistant book the appointment, right? It feels a little big-timey, and that's just not really who I am. But the efficiency that it creates for me, I'm an efficiency maniac now, too.
Yep.
Like, I am...
Once you start doing it, you realize the benefits to it, and you can't go back.
The hard part is a lot of people aren't, and so like I find like I need therapy now for like dealing with inefficient people, because I mean, I get frustrated. But yeah, no, it's a great. I actually have stopped that sort of culture of busy, and I'm actually proud of myself when I'm not busy. Right? I am trying to have a day where I do very little, but a lot gets done, right?
Yeah.
Versus where I do a lot and a lot gets done. And that's not always, we don't reward that very much, right? We were, hard work and right. But I work hard, but.
Well, now the whole trend is the whole hustle entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. Yes. But that's another one that gets tossed around a whole bunch, right? Like everybody wants to be an entrepreneur until it's time to do some entrepreneur shit, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody wants to go to the bar and talk about how they're an entrepreneur, but what does that really mean, right?
Yeah.
Well, that means you are definitely in the work more, not less category, right?
And you're likely not going to be at the bar.
And you aren't at the bar, right? I know if I meet you at the bar and you tell me you're an entrepreneur, you're a liar, right? Because real entrepreneurs aren't at the bar; they're grinding. There's one of my favorite quotes on entrepreneurship is an entrepreneur spends 3 years of their life like most people won't, so they can spend the rest of their life like most people can't, right?
Yeah.
So you get super uncomfortable for 2 or 3 years of your life, and you just grind, and you're broke, and you're hungry, and you're frustrated.
Sometimes even longer. I mean, look at Elon Musk lived inside of his office when he was building up PayPal.
Yeah.
And it was a tiny 200-300 square foot
Totally.
office.
Yeah.
And that was like he didn't have an apartment. He would go to the YMCA.
Yeah, take a shower.
And take a shower.
Yeah. No, the grind is real, right? And I'm not trying to look. If you're out there calling yourself an entrepreneur, I think that's cool. Go do your thing. I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but I know by the result, and like it's a tireless endeavor. I've launched a couple of companies, or been part of launching a couple of companies, and it is a tremendous amount of work. It's incredibly gratifying. It's super fun, but it's not, it's not just, it's not all the Facebook quotes and and hot cars, right?
Yeah.
Like that is not. That's the byproduct, maybe later, but it isn't how you start.
So besides virtual assistants, are you using any technology to automate what you do?
I'm big on the Google Suite, right?
Oh yeah,
and I use it ferociously. It's crazy, but in our company, we have share sheets for just about everything, anything that collaborative work products. One thing on the real estate side that I think it's wildly underutilized, which is kind of crazy, is GoToMeeting, a virtual meeting, so whether it's Join.me or any one of those, right?
Yeah, G Suite has its own.
Yeah,
version
G
of it.
Suite does. It does. if you're listening and you're going to start, I don't recommend you start there. I think the user interface on that is actually harder than some of the others, but whatever. Like find your tool.
On Google Meet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's just because I learned on something else first. But find the one that works for you and then use it. Whatever. Right. It's just a tool. We don't need the perfect shovel. We just need a shovel.
Yeah.
But in this, it's harder and harder to get clients to come meet you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to. Like, we won't even go out to dinner anymore. We want it DoorDashed. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you recreate as much of that trust environment as humanly possible so that you can have an interaction with people at distance, because it's becoming more and more at distance, because nobody wants, real estate in the future, there'll be some, virtual reality room that we step into with sellers where you aren't actually even going to the house.
Everyone's got a headset on.
Yeah, everyone's got a headset on, and then you won't go see the house till you've already secured the listing, so that you can actually look at it and price it or whatever, right? Like, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it's not going to look like, let me drive over to your home and sit in your kitchen and talk to you about selling your house.
Yeah.
The humans have communicated again and again and again that they don't want that, right? Through DoorDash and all these other technologies that are coming up that allows for convenience. So at least let's use a virtual meeting source. Like I would do, I wouldn't get on a call to review disclosures. I would get on a virtual meeting to review disclosures, right? I can literally go page by page through the purchase agreement. I wouldn't, how the first time you meet with somebody to write an offer, you meet in person, right?
Yeah.
You go line by line through the contract. And then like in this market, they might write 5, 6, 7, 8, 18 offers before they win, right? Well, by the time they're writing the 5th one, you're just docu-signing it over. You call them on the phone, you hit the highlights with them, right? And that's it. Well, at least do that. Create trust at distance through more intimacy, and you can do that with things that allow you to share screen, allow you to show different things that you're thinking about and working on. So it's all about, I think technology is a tool and it's great, but especially on the real estate side, it's a high trust interpersonal sale. Right. Mm-hmm. And so anything that I always look at technology through the lens of how can I make this more personal with the consumer, with the client, so that it feels like we're together even when we're not.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you bring up DoorDash instead of going out to dinner, because more and more we start to value our time. Right.
Yeah.
And if we can save time and then be able to do something else we really want to do. And so where I'm going with this is, there's now a big debate with Amazon Key.
Yeah.
Just announcing.
Ooh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're now announcing their electronic keypads or lock boxes, and there's a lot of agents really upset. And there's a big debate about this.
Yes.
Now in property management, in the property management world, we already have this.
Right.
And we've been effectively using electronic lock boxes where people can do self showings.
Yep.
And the number of problems that occur are extremely, extremely minimal.
Sure.
And so where do you see real estate going with these electronic lock boxes?
Yeah, it's a good one. I will start with, I should probably do more research on it, right? To really
what's your gut feeling?
Yeah, but so with that caveat, now I'll tell you what I think. I think first of all, if our value prop as an industry is that we have access to the front door, we're in big trouble, right? You can make a tremendous amount of money in this industry. You can be a very high earner. I personally would like to keep it that way. And the way that you stay as a high earner is you provide massive value for the receiver, for the client, right? Mm-hmm. Attorneys make a lot of money because they had to do a lot of school and they provide high value for their clients. We make a lot of money because we provide really high value for our clients. If our value prop is we have the key, think about, it reminds me a little bit of the panic, and I wasn't around then, but back in the day before they had an MLS, there used to be the book.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
When I first got into the business,
me
we
too.
still had the book delivered.
We did too. Yeah. So it was around, but nobody used it, right? Yeah. And so, and there were people freaking out, saying, well, now just anybody's going to, like, they used to have to call the real estate agent to know about the available homes for sale. And that was a huge value prop for the industry, and it went away. But yet, it's still such a stressful purchase process. The purchase process for the consumer and the sales process is so incredibly stressful. It's one of the biggest financial decisions that they'll ever make. It's this concept of home, right? I'm not selling an investment property. I'm not selling some house in Atlanta that I've never seen. Mm-hmm. I'm selling my home where I raised my kids. and I've got people walking through, or I'm buying my home where I'm going to raise my kids. It's too emotionally stressful. I need another human being to shepherd me through that process.
Yeah.
So I get where the fear comes from. I truly do. It feels like, is this just the foot in the door for Amazon Realty, right?
Yeah.
I'm not on the board of Amazon, but I don't think Amazon's trying to get into the residential real estate business.
And dealing with clients, right?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think so. I also wouldn't have thought they were going to buy a grocery store, though, either, right? So, but that does have more brand extension to me, because I've had this conversation like, well, they bought grocery stores. Right, but they brought grocery stores to do fulfillment for the things that people were already ordering.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't a fulfillment solution inside of residential real estate where, like, because now we have the key, now I can deliver more smiley boxes to people all over the world. They're really just, Amazon's all about delivering smiley boxes.
And you know what's funny is I'm ordering all my groceries now through Amazon.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
and so
to my door. Yeah.
they saw Whole Foods as a distribution line, right? So that's a distribution center where they can now get groceries delivered. That's why they made that move. I don't see how, and I could be missing it, and if someone wants to hit me up and buy me a whiskey and tell me why I'm wrong, I'm down. But I don't see where there's a brand extension or an extension of that. What they're about is fulfillment and distribution channels. It's really what they're about.
I would think the company that would have done it first would be Zillow.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, Zillow could have done Zillow Realty.
No, yeah, and we're
take all the leads.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think Zillow, and I get a lot of flack for this one too, but I don't think they have any interest in being in the residential real estate business.
Yeah,
if they wanted to, they already done it.
Would have done it.
Yeah. Like, truthfully, there's probably better margins in selling leads to real estate agents than there is in being a real estate broker owner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, software makes more money than real estate.
Still to this day, average realtor makes 35 to 38 grand.
Yeah. And starting a real estate company is really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's a lot of capital expense. You've got to have bricks and mortar. You have a fractionalized, decentralized workforce. Like, starting a national residential real estate company is not something that is super easy. And I don't think Zillow is trying to figure out how to get into residential real estate. I think they are trying to figure out how to sell us stuff, and do it in a way that the consumer has a great experience, and then hopefully that the real estate agent has a great experience as well.
Now, talking about some of the agent backlash on like technology change.
Yeah.
Zillow next month is doing a conference with the Federal Trade Commission and Department of Justice, and the whole debate is going to be about MLS data.
Yeah.
And this is going to be very interesting to watch, because the big question, and it looks like the person in charge, I believe at the, I don't know if it's Department of Justice or FTC, has come out and said, well, this is data that belongs to everyone, and I understand about protecting data, but at what point does data need to be privatized?
Yeah.
And I think there's an argument on both sides.
There is.
But I think the trend that we're seeing with the internet ever since it first came out, and people have just been jumping on the internet more and more, is that if you're the gatekeeper for information, eventually you're going to die off.
Yeah.
And you get squeezed out.
If that's all you are, right?
Yeah.
If that's your sole existence, is to be the the traffic cop for data, then okay, you go now and you stop, then I agree with you.
So it's a very similar argument to where the brokers were complaining about losing MLS data when it was going from the book to the actual MLS online, right?
Yeah.
But now everyone's used to it. Everyone's okay with it. Now there might be the potential for MLS data to really just be made publicly everywhere, and then that becomes another hot topic, debate. People are not happy with it.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, if you bring value to your clients, I mean, I don't think I don't think our profession is going to transform or disappear, and I don't think we're going to transform into people that just quote information or quote what's off the internet. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but how do you analyze it? Or how do you handle an emotional selling process?
Totally.
There's always going to be a need for real estate agents to really guide the entire process.
Yeah, always is a dangerous word. And I do think we need to be wise stewards of our industry, right? But I agree with you. I don't think data is the key, right? I think, I mean, really, if you really want, whose data is it? Like, whose data is it? To me, and this gets me in trouble sometimes, so I may not ever be invited back, but to me, it's like the data is the client data, right? Like, so what's in it? We're a fiduciary, right? Mm-hmm. We are supposed to do what's in the best interest of the client, not what's in the best interest of ourselves as a real estate agent. So what is in the best interest of the client? And that's the lens that I prefer to look at it through. And truthfully, on this one, I'm still somewhat undecided. But I think we look at it too often through the lens of what's best for the industry and not often enough through the lens of what's best for the client. And if we're going to be a fiduciary, and again, fiduciaries tend to do well, and people who aren't fiduciaries don't tend to make the same money and have the same opportunity. If we really want people to trust us, then we truly have to make decisions based off what's best for them. And so long as we continue to look at it through that lens and not necessarily what's best for us as a real estate agent, then I think we'll be fine. When we lose sight of that is when I think we get in trouble.
Yeah. And I think that entire conference, that's literally what they're going to be debating.
Correct.
For like 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. It will. But I agree with the macro premise that so long as we focus on the humans that are transacting, what comes out of that will matter less and have less impact, so long as we don't ever lose sight of the fact that there are human beings that are doing this incredibly stressful thing, that, moving sucks, right? If anybody's moved lately, like, it's the worst, right? So they're moving. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's massive documentation that they have to sign. It's all the things we hate in life, right, are involved with this process of buying and selling a house. And it's our job to pick them up when they get too far down, to pull them down when they get too excited, and to be a true fiduciary for them through the process. And whatever that means, that's the lens we should look at it through.
Now, where's your main office located?
Our corporate headquarters is in Pleasanton, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, BART's expanding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you see BART helping out the entire ecosystem and traffic?
Yeah. And it's expanding to San Jose, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a little nutty here, right? In the Bay Area, it's just crazy. I think, and for anyone who's listening, I've said this on stage in front of groups big and small. And if anybody's out there and they can help me find another place where it's like this, I would love it, because I'd love something to study where it's happened before. But to my knowledge, this is the only place on the globe and in human history where you've had two world economic epicenters within 30 miles of each other. So you've got San Francisco, which for the western U.S., basically west of the Mississippi, most would consider it, or at least for the western U.S., it's the financial hub, right? It's a lot of banking. It's a tremendous economic epicenter in San Francisco. And then 30 miles south of there on the peninsula is Silicon Valley, another worldwide economic epicenter. So you have these two global, not regional, global economic epicenters within 30 miles of each other. So what does that mean? Well, that means a lot of jobs, right? A lot of high-paying jobs, especially the jobs that are created by both those sectors, right? Finance and tech. So you've got a lot of people making a lot of money. And if you look at housing values, so you think about, you throw two big rocks in a pond, right? Where the waves are the biggest, or where the concentric circles, the ripples overlap, those two waves hit each other, and that creates the biggest wave.
Yeah.
Well, where are properties the most expensive? Right in between those two areas on the peninsula, right? And all the ripples radiate out from there. And so your question was about BART, and somehow I ended on this random diatribe. But I think that what we're trying to figure out as, humans trying to live together in a geography is all the jobs are in those two places. And how the hell are we going to get people to and from those two places, right?
Yeah.
And, a lot of them are in San Jose. And so I think it'll help with that to a certain degree. I don't think it's the one problem that will solve everything. What's it going to do for real estate values? Truthfully, I don't think BART. We have other issues driving our real estate values that I don't think BART. Is if the BART track gets put across the street from my house, I'm gonna be pissed. Okay, right? Because it's gonna hurt my value. If the BART track gets, if the station is within a mile of my house, it probably helps values a little bit. But our values aren't having a problem at all. Like there's plenty of other economic drivers that are pushing up values in the Bay Area, and BART will have an impact, but I don't think it's going to be a key driver, except for certain very specific situations.
Yeah, the housing crisis is something that I think it really just comes down to supply and demand. You have a ton of people moving into the Bay Area. You mentioned jobs, so you have a high demand of people wanting to live here in the Bay Area, and you just don't have enough housing.
There's definitely inventory is a huge component. There's definitely a huge component,
and that's rental and like housing for sale.
Correct. Period. Both. Yeah, we have an inventory shortage on both sides of the equation here in the Bay Area, and it's exacerbated by it's hard to build here. It's just one of the hardest places to build, and I love. I get the benefits of why, right? I drove over here from Pleasanton, and there were rolling green hills in between, and it was beautiful and great. Right. And in other parts of the country, they'd be slapping houses all up and down those hillsides. Right.
Yeah.
So it's harder to build here than it is to build other places. And that's one of the reasons we love it here. But it's also one of the reasons that it's so darn expensive. You, again, have those two economic epicenters. So you have people making, really per average across the country, the income level here is really high. So that puts upward pressure on price. The last time it got this weird, as far as I think affordability is the biggest issue that's facing our real estate market today, right? I think we're at or near the affordability ceiling where a starter house, first-time home buyer house is $1 million. Like, for real? Like, damn. Like, that's a lot of money, right? Go pick any other city in the U.S. with the exception of Manhattan. You could buy some pretty nice houses for $1 million, right?
And you buy 10 houses.
You could buy 10 houses in a lot of places, or a really, they'll be shooting rap videos in your backyard, right? Yeah. And here, that's a starter house. That's nuts. The last time we got to this level, we saw banks get, I'll call it creative, right? And there's only a handful of things. Look, a mortgage calculation is relatively simple. You've got how much is someone borrowing, at what rate, for how long, and that spits out a number, right? Yep. And so what the banks chose to do was to tinker with the rate. And we did things like teaser rates and 0% for a little while, or even negative amortization if you chose that, and then it would escalate up in time. But you could still have a payment for the first few years anyway that made $1 million feel like it was $650 or $700. And so we hit the affordability ceiling, and then we ran right through it because of some creative financing opportunities. And I'm not blaming the financial side of the business. Everybody, we borrowers borrowed it. The industry pitched it. There's no one person that's responsible for the financial crisis. But that's what happened. So what are we going to see now? Well, we're seeing some of the same things start to come back. We're seeing lending relax a fair amount. I personally think we could use a little slowdown, right? A little time to catch our breath. Normally these things run in 7 to 10 year cycles. It's been a 10-year run.
Yep.
Values are really high. I think it would be great if we just took a little breath.
I just saw a bank come out with stated income.
Yeah. It's I mean, the beautiful thing about our country is we have a short memory, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're willing to make the same mistakes twice. And then the downside is we're willing to make the same mistakes twice.
This time it's going to be better, right?
No, probably not. I mean, here's how I don't think it's not like I'm not selling everything and moving to cash yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that bad. We haven't hit what I call my bartender rule. So when my bartender buys his second investment property, that's when it's time to sell everything and move to cash, right? So when you've got people who shouldn't be buying their third and fourth property, okay, then it's time to sell everything, move to cash, rent a house, because the end is close. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's hard to have a bubble if you're always talking about a bubble, but I do think we are at or very near the affordability ceiling. Another inventory issue is people don't feel as rich as they used to. So there's great employment, but the kinds of jobs maybe aren't what everybody would want.
Well, see, that's one thing that I've had this debate with a few of my friends that really follow and are into economics
Yep.
and politics is that the unemployment rate is always touted to be one of the lowest ever.
Yeah, it is the lowest.
But
Yes.
but it also depends on
But what
how
jobs?
what jobs.
Sure.
Like, so if you lost a lot of $20 to $30 an hour jobs,
Yep.
and you gain them with $10 to $12 an hour jobs,
Yep.
well, yeah, your unemployment rate's going to drop dramatically, but it's still not the same.
Yeah. Well, there's some nuance in there too, right? So if you look at Northern California, where we are, the jobs that are being formed here are actually not like they're very good paying jobs that are being formed here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredibly nuanced. I think headlines and even CNBC or Bloomberg or for sure Fox or CNN or whoever your news outlet of choice, they're not actually trying to like explain anything to you. They're just trying to capture your attention for a few minutes to pierce the noise, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the reasons I like podcasts, by the way. You can have a much more thoughtful discussion, long form, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think you got to be a Harvard-trained economist to know that we're at or near the affordability ceiling in the Bay Area. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I think people aren't trading up because they don't feel rich. I think that has some to do with the jobs. But here in Northern California, I think it has more to do with the age, right? So in the recession that we went through, I'm 46, okay? So I'm I'm not old yet, but I'm close, right? But if I was 56 and I just went through what I went through, like man, you know what? Like this house is good enough. We don't really need to sell this, do we? Like we could just go ahead and ride this one out. We don't need to trade up one more time, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that middle market that is choosing not to trade up. I think partially because they're doing fine, but they don't feel wealthy, right? And because of the scars from going through the recession that we went through, 9 years ago or whatever. So I think those two things have sort of eliminated a big chunk of that trade up market, which is so you got the trade up market that's been gutted. It's really hard to build here. Builders are also way more conservative because they got their heads caved in the downturn. So they're not just going nuts either, right? And so you got people making a lot of money in the Bay Area comparatively. You've got that middle market of trade up inventory that's not there. You've got builders being more conservative than they've historically been. And you've got it harder to build here than it is most places in the country. Shocker, we have an inventory issue.
Yeah,
right?
there was some crazy stat that I saw where I want to say 70% of senior citizens haven't sold their house in at least 14 years.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that.
No, that makes a certain amount of sense, right? I mean, if you think
it's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. Are they less likely to anyway, right? Because moving sucks. We covered that earlier, right? Yeah. And but for sure, if you made it through the last downturn, right, you're like, I'm good. Like I'm cool. Maybe let's just slap a coat of paint on this one and let's ride this one out.
Yeah. Now you're with NextHome.
Yeah.
You're the chief strategy officer over there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see more and more NextHomes pop up here and there.
Yes. Good.
Yeah, and in fact, Michael Bardalis,
That's right.
a good friend of mine, just opened one up in Pittsburgh.
He did.
And so, what makes NextHome different than any other brokerage?
Yeah. There's two keys that make it different, and it's funny because it's what everybody says. So I'll add a little context, right? The two biggest differences are technology and brand. And that's what everybody says.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to technology, this one's near and dear to my heart and to yours too, I think, is real estate technology, it gets thrown around a lot. And I think we're missing a piece, and this is the problem that NextHome is solving and that we're committed to solving, is if you have one tool to use for your CMA, you have a different tool to use for a single property website, you have a different tool to use to create your flyers and your print materials, you have a different tool to use for your open house. You have all these different tools, and none of them communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you want to upload photos for your single property website, you got to upload photos for your single property website. Every time you want to upload something into your open house software system. You've got to, anytime you want to put something into your CRM, anytime, you've got to write the copy. You've got to upload photos. It's incredibly inefficient.
Yeah.
And so we have a single sign-on system in our technology. We have programmers and developers that work for us on staff, and they wake up every day trying to make all these different tools that we've picked to bring inside our system, inside our ecosystem. They work all day to make them communicate better, so that when you upload photos, you upload once, it goes everywhere you'd ever need it. We take the public copy that is part of the MLS, and we push that to as your marketing default copy. Now, some of that you'd probably want to change, right?
Okay.
But at least you're editing, you're not creating. Because all of the different tools that we have some sort of marketing copy that's needed.
Yeah.
So we're really relentless and ruthless about attempting to, and we're not perfect, and we could always be better, but we want as much automation as possible and as much communication and letting the tools just be the tools and getting all of the stuff out of the way so that our people can focus on selling houses and helping human beings with the process. So
they're able to go on and their photos are already uploaded, click a button, they generate a flyer, they're good to go.
Yes. I mean, at least
in
click of a button might be a little bit aggressive.
3
but
clicks. Maybe.
That's the goal. That is the goal, right? Where you can go in, and whether you're making a single property website, you're designing an open house flyer, you're doing a just listed, just sold, you're doing a CMA, all the information is just there. And we take in all the information. It's a tremendous amount of work for us to aggregate all this data, right? We're back to data. But we pull in all the data, and then we push it into the various tools for our people. So it's not just that we went and cut the deals with the various technology providers. All of our competitors do that. And you've got to have a suite of tools that are available for your people.
So is this like a hub an agent can go into, and they have access to third-party companies that all use?
Correct.
Okay.
And we make those third-party companies participate with us in making sure that the data flows seamlessly back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah. So we try to find best-in-breed partners. Sometimes we'll build it our own, but most of the time we will partner with a third-party vendor, but we hold them really accountable to a standard of pushing data back and forth so that it's as seamless an experience for our agents as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
it's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's very simple to explain, though it took me a long time for some reason, but it's very simple to explain. Just really, it's a lot of work to get it done. But automation is think about the 15-year-old today that's going to be getting in real estate in 10 years. Like, I go absolutely nuts when I see the little spinning wheel on my iPhone for more than a second, right? And I'm old. That 15-year-old kid that's going to be 25 in 10 years doing real estate, he or she is not going to understand why it's such a fractured, decentralized environment for the tools, right?
Yeah.
They just will not accept it. So, we think we're ahead of the curve on that particular aspect, and so that's definitely one of our core value props that we bring to the party.
Yeah. I was at the California Association Realtor Conference last week.
Yeah.
And I attended one of their business technology forums, and they were talking about how in 2000, it might have been 2012, 13, there might have been only $60-70 million invested in real estate technology.
Yeah.
Last year, there was over $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're starting to see the revolution of technology within real estate. And it's just getting started because there's a lot of people not really thinking, like what you said, about that 15-year-old that's going to be in real estate in 10 years.
For sure.
They're going to want things quick and fast.
Yeah. It's as an industry, we've historically been pretty slow to adopt technology. We've been relatively resistant as an industry historically.
It's also tough when the average age is 58.
Yeah, for the record, Keith Robinson did not say that. The host did, but yeah, no, I agree. Like it's for a lot of reasons, that being one of them. We've been relatively slow to adopt technology, right? Like, do you know how long it took us to adopt DocuSign as a technology?
Lots of years.
It took 10 years. 10 years. Something that is so simple, so needed, so. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing it without DocuSign now.
Yeah,
right?
but out of all the realtors, and there's
Mhm.
like about 200,000 realtors in California,
Yep.
there's only 35,000 using DocuSign.
That's insane to me. Well, okay, but they're using some other digital signature software.
Yeah, there's
'Cause CAR provides
there's
their
Zip
own.
Logics,
Yeah.
but so maybe if you combine them, maybe 50,000. You're
Yeah.
talking about a quarter of. Now, a lot of these agents also don't produce, right?
Right.
There's a lot of
Sure.
realtors that have their license.
I
and
would
pay their
say
dues
if
and-
some, and this is very anecdotal, I don't have any data to back this up, but of the agents that are making a living in California selling real estate, most of them are using some sort of digital signing software. But you're making
Yeah.
my point now. Like, I'm actually defending the opposite of my point. Like, again, another example of we're slow to adopt technology. The fact that it's not 100% is insane.
Yeah.
Right? The consumer wants it. The client wants it for sure. The client does not want to drive all the way over to your office to sign some paperwork.
Yeah.
That's nuts, right? That's like, would you ask them to fax it too? Like, stop. That's crazy. So it took us 10 years, and we're
There
still
are
working
people
on it.
that still do faxing, which surprises me.
Well, and look, I won't say the client's always right, but if they have a preference, we'll honor their
Well,
preference.
no, I'm not talking about clients. I'm talking about agents.
Well, I know. Damn. Yeah.
I've had 2 in the last year.
The good news is they're probably not listening to this podcast.
Yeah, for sure they're not.
For sure not. So we're slow to adopt technology. We are getting better, right? We are getting better. We are becoming more comfortable with the pace of change and adopting technology. But I think it's going to hit another RPM level as far as adoption of technology. I really think it's going to ramp up. So, yeah, we're working hard to stay ahead of that curve.
So how is it managing agents? Because you don't only focus on the technology aspect at NextHome,
Yep.
but how many agents are part of NextHome right now?
So we've got 2,500-ish agents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're a franchisor. We're not a franchisee. So, technically we don't manage agents on a day-to-day basis. Our great franchisees and broker owners do that in the local markets. But I've managed agents for a big chunk of my life. So it's, managing agents, I think, the real key is to treat them with a lot of love and respect and like a grown-up, right? And that comes with pluses and minuses for both sides, right? The beautiful thing about being that independent contractor mindset residential real estate professional is you have a tremendous amount of freedom. And the hardest part about it is you have a tremendous amount of freedom, right? And so you've got to steward them through that, right? Help them identify when the freedom is good and when the freedom isn't serving them. And love doesn't always feel like love, right? Like, I like people that will tell me I have stuff in my teeth, right? It's always embarrassing when they mention it, right? Or that'll tell me if my zipper's down, right?
Yeah.
But if they really care about you, they'll let you know because they want you to run around with your mess hanging out, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they'll tell you. So love doesn't always feel like love, and you've got to sort of manage them through that process of, pointing out where there's areas that they can improve and acknowledging them when they succeed, and all those different components. But it's tough. It's a tough job.
Yeah. How do you motivate agents? Because that's one thing when you're managing agents and you're trying to run a business, a brokerage, and then you have some agents that are just not motivated.
Well, how do you motivate anybody, right? Not just agents, right? Like, my key, and if I really had this cracked, I'd probably just sell my book for a couple 100 million copies sold, right? But I think often I decided that I wasn't going to want their success more than they did, right? So I was going to create an environment where they could succeed, but success was still up to them. And that is really hard because in the beginning I wanted to save everybody. I wanted to, if I just coached them a little harder, if I just loved them a little more, if I could just find the secret that's going to crack the code, right? Maybe it's just because I got MBA on the brain, right? Because the Warriors are on their way to their next most recent championship. Steve Kerr's a great coach, right? But if Steve Kerr was coaching the Knicks, they might get a few more wins, but they're not contending for championships, right? So I can't come to the party with more energy than they're ready to receive. I guess, right?
Mhm.
Like, have you ever ever had someone like super into you and you just weren't that into them?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like, how's that feel? Kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, like, give me a little space, give me a little room, right? Well, I think a lot of times when we're leading our agents, we do the same thing. We're like pushing, like, come on, don't you want this? Like, like we're trying to motivate them.
Especially when you see someone with like a lot of talent, a
Yeah.
lot of potential. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But like, there were times in my life where there were people that were trying to invest in me where I just wasn't about it, right? Like, I just wasn't ready to receive it for whatever reason. So I found myself getting really burnt out and frustrated because I was trying to love everyone all the way there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you've got to say, hey, look, if you want this career, this is what it takes. And if you don't want this career, that's also okay, right? Like, so often I think we're afraid to have that conversation where not everybody's built for this. That doesn't make them bad people. They're built for something else, and that's okay. And I've had other jobs up until this one, right? I've had other careers up until this one, and all of them helped me prepare for where I am today. And not everybody's journey hits residential real estate and they stick and stay forever, right? And so loving them enough to create a little bit of tension, I think, is okay. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, if you think about pulling a rubber band back, how do you get trajectory, right? How do you launch a rubber band? Well, if I don't pull it back a little, if I don't create some tension in the rubber band, then it's impossible for me to launch it, right? So you need not a lot, but enough tension, enough encouragement, but also a little bit of pressure to produce and to succeed, and helping them define what success is, right? I've had some agents who might not be they weren't top producers, they weren't winning awards, but they were great agents. They never missed a soccer game or never missed a dance performance, but they were serious about their business. They made their living from selling real estate. I'm cool. I'm down with that. That's okay. Help them define what their success is, what success looks like for them, and then help them achieve it. And sometimes to do that, you got to create a little tension. And that's the piece that I see many residential real estate leaders shy away from. They care about people so much. They love the human being so much that they don't want to create that tension. And sometimes you need a little bit of tension to get trajectory.
Chaos. A little bit of chaos.
Yeah. Or a little bit of discomfort, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not comfortable to tell someone that their zipper's down, right?
Yeah,
like, you got to go like, yo, you need to handle your business, right? Right? That feels a little awkward, but it's to your betterment, right?
Yeah.
So that you're not running around the party looking a mess. So some people need to be told that when it comes to their professional business, their zipper's down, and then you can help them fix it.
Yeah. There's a professor and philosopher, Jordan Peterson.
Uh-huh.
Do you know him?
I do.
Okay, yeah, and he just came out with his book. I think it's the 12 Principles.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but yeah.
Yeah. And one of them, he talks about chaos and how people need a certain amount of tolerable chaos in their life because that becomes their attention to then evolve to the next level.
Yeah.
And not total chaos to where you're destroyed, but tolerable chaos to where it helps you grow.
Yeah, or I might invert that. Now, don't get me wrong, Jordan Peterson's a lot smarter than me, so I don't mean to contradict him or his book, but I think growth creates a certain amount of chaos that you could stand. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's inverted, right?
Yep.
I don't know that you need chaos for growth, maybe, but I for sure know that when you grow, it creates chaos.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's just one endless cycle.
Yeah. Like, if you think you've got it figured out, like, I know I've said this before in my professional life a lot of times, like, I think we got this figured out. And then like, don't ever say it out loud, because within a week, something's going to break. Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's just the way of things. So I do think that you have to be comfortable with a certain level of chaos or, pain to grow, right? There's certain growth hurts a little bit, but it's worth it.
Okay. And then, so before we finish this off, what are the 3 biggest lessons that you've learned in life and through your career that you can share? And it could be something for a brand new agent, maybe someone experienced, maybe someone looking to taking that step from being an agent to a broker.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I'll get to 3, but I'll try. The biggest, and it's weird, so I have a 6-year-old little girl, right? So when your kid starts to get 5, 6, you're trying to like, all right, like what are the things I really need to like cement in their brain, right? And what are the things that I really want to make sure that I'm preparing, for me it's a her or for whoever, right? Preparing him or her for to get the most out of life, right? And it's funny because I was thinking about it a lot when it comes to my little one, and one of the big ones for me was I just need to help her understand that a big piece of it is just do what you say you're going to do. Well, that's not revolutionary, right? Like that's not going to get us a bunch more podcast listeners with that one. But what's interesting is it sounds so simple.
Or do what you say you're going to do in 4 hours a week.
Yeah, sure. Ideally, yes. Yeah, now we'll sell more podcasts. Yeah. But yeah, like, because if you think about it, like I had to learn the skill of saying no. I said yes to everything, right? Because I was addicted to busy. It was really important to me that people liked me, right? And so saying no for me was something that I really struggled with early in my career. And I ended up getting pulled to all these different directions, and I wasn't as focused or as channeled. And so I would say yes to things and then do average at them, instead of saying no to some things so that I could be great at everything that I said yes to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, someone might be saying, well, you should do open house. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. But if you're going to do open house, be great at it and do a lot of it and do it all the time, right? So think about what you commit to saying yes to. But if you say yes to something, be exceptional, right? Like be present, be there, get it done, right? There's always things that happen. I was scheduled to do this with you, and I got sick, right?
Yeah.
So I said yes to something, and then I had to reschedule it. I hate that, right? But life happens, so that's right. But when I was here 15 minutes early, thought about it a lot, thought about it, for the couple days prior. I wanted to definitely be in a mindset where I could come here and provide real value for your show and for your listeners, right?
Yep.
Because if I'm going to do a thing, I want to do it really well. I'd rather do less, but people know, oh, man, well, when Keith says he's going to do it, it gets done, right? And that sounds like it shouldn't be a real earth-shatterer, but it is. I've found in building businesses, there's a lot of people who tell me they're going to do things. Like, I count on this. I run into people all the time. I shouldn't be giving away a secret. People who know me, listen, if I've done this to you, I apologize. I promise I still love you. But they're like, hit me up, right? Like, it doesn't take anything to be like, oh, can you send me blah, blah, right? And the old days, I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then I had to write it down, make a note, go back to my computer, pull it up, and send it to them. And it took them very little energy for the request, and it took me way more energy comparatively to provide it. So now whenever anybody asks me for anything, I'm like, yes, I would totally love to do that. So it's still yes. Just do me a favor. I use email as my to-do list. Shoot me an email, and I will get that over to you. And 70, 80, 90% of the time, I don't ever get the email.
Because it's not that important.
It's not that important to them. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But then let's also not make it so important to me, right? Like, if it's really important to you, then I will do it for sure. But if it's not that important to you, that's okay. That's okay too, right? We were just having a conversation, and you made a polite request. But don't make me do all this stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I try to say no to some things, or put little hurdles, not big giant hurdles, but just little hurdles in threats to my time. But so that I do that, not because I'm a selfish jerk, well, maybe a little bit of that, but also because it's just important to me that what I say yes to, I do really well. And I mean, so that was one, and it probably took like 10 minutes to cover that one. But like that to me is, from a macro standpoint, important. Like, do less, but do it well. Another one, man, what have I learned? I've made every mistake you could possibly make. I guess that would be one. Don't be afraid to fail. Make mistakes, glorious mistakes. Make them all the time. Just don't make the same ones twice.
Yeah.
Like, but be okay with failing. Like, we have a pretty perfectionist mindset. In one of my offices I used to run, I had a big giant P with the Ghostbuster, sort of cross out thing through it. And I had it, and I just put it up one day, and people would always, what's the deal with that? And I'd be like, that's because perfection's a myth. We don't do perfection here.
Yeah.
We're not about perfection. We're about, getting better than. Let's be better at this than we were yesterday. Let's be better at this a year from now than we are today. But, perfection is a myth. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Keith, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Man, thanks for having me. That was a good time.
NextHome is lucky to have you. That's for sure.
Thanks, man. Well, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for doing this for us, for the industry. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.